Well, hi there, folks. Just a little thing that I decided to do. I wasn't sure whether to post this or not because I know some people tend to, can find this a bit boring, but I find this quite interesting. This is the sort of planning side of it, and this is what I tend to do is just to sort of sketch of the garden and just to kind of work out where everything's going to go this year, so at least I have some kind of plan. Plan that will probably change maybe as we go through the season, but sort of this is the general idea. But before I get into too much detail on that, I'm just going to sort of reference that, and I'm going to quickly sort of show you the garden. So basically we've got three 8-foot square semi-raised beds there, and as we move around you can see there's a border that goes around the lawn. Just at the bottom there you can see the decking frame where the decking is going to go. The lower half of the garden where the bench is and the compost bin. Just to the left at the end of the beds there, there's that little sort of area where there's a climbing frame at the minute. And coming over to the right we've got the shed, the polytunnel, and just behind the polytunnel there we've got the two long 8-foot raised beds. If you've watched the videos I've done so far, you'll sort of have a rough idea of. I always like to give an overview of the garden because I think often you watch people's videos, especially on allotments, and you sort of see bits, but you never sort of get to see the whole thing or get an idea of where you are. So I hope that was helpful. So we're just going to go back to the plan now. Now I need to make sure I do apologise for that, try and get my hand in shot here so that I can point to certain parts as I'm talking about it. So really, as we were looking at the garden then, that would be sort of that way as we look out the window, with these semi-raised beds to the right there. But just to make it a bit easier, we can do it that way. So this is kind of how it goes. We've got the three semi-raised beds. We've got one for the where the garlic and onion is going to go. Lettuce, beetroot, and also leeks are going to go in there as well. Now what I'm going to do with the lettuce is I'm not going to do long 8-foot rows, all at the same time. I'm probably actually going to sort of split the rows in two basically. So I'll do sort of one sowing of green lettuce, half a row of red, and try and get it successional. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that shortly, so I'll not go into that too much, but basically lettuce, beetroot and leeks, and then this is going to be the sort of brassica bed, and the swede's going to go in there as well. Is swede a brassica? I'm not sure. I think it is, but I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's going there anyway. Basically, the sort of winter veg is going in this area. As I say, each of these is 8-foot square. I'm going to do a little nature pond at the bottom of the beds. So again, if I just sort of reference that outside, and you can see at the end of the beds there where that plastic horrible climbing thing is, that's basically where the nature pond is going to go. And then we've got the trees and the bushes sort of beyond that. This is area where I like to leave it to grow wild, really. We get sort of hedgehogs and all sorts in there, so I'm not really going to do anything with that. Compost bin. The location of this might move through the season. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm thinking of getting a silo as well. This is one of those things that looks like a Dalek. You'd have probably seen it in the last video. Well, you would have seen it when we looked out the window just then. But I'm thinking of getting an open silo because I find that sometimes these bins that things can sweat sometimes. I don't know. We'll see. Arbour down in this corner, just basically a nice place to sit really. So just behind the polytunnel, when we were looking at the garden there, I mentioned we have these two long raised beds. These are 8-foot by 2-foot. And basically the plan is that in this one, half of it, we're going to grow our sugar snap peas for the year. We're going to set the canes up. We'll have a 4-foot row. It should be enough. There's only 3 mouths to feed, so we don't need to grow loads of everything. And the other half of that bed's going to be for basically the things that we want to be doing regular sowings of: radish, spring onion, salad leaves are going to go in there. This one here, which I forgot to write on, but that's going to be our strawberry bed. And strawberries being strawberries, that will be our strawberry bed for probably the next 3 years, I would imagine. Along the middle path here, so just to again reference that, you see where the path runs across there. Just sort of get my hand in shot. There it is. So most of the potatoes, the tubs, are going to stand on here. You know, the idea being that I'm going to sort of leave a little gap to walk through. Again, you know, these are not fixed. I mean, the location of these might change. I might put them elsewhere, but at the minute that seems like the most sensible place. In the polytunnel itself, I've got one half kitted out for tomatoes. The other half is where I'm going to grow cucumber, and this is basically a little border that I have in polytunnel. So cucumber, and also the earliest salad, like the lettuce and stuff, you know, the very first ones I do of the season, and also the late ones at the back end of the season. Now, the year just gone, it was actually a really warm autumn, and I'm convinced I could have put lettuce out in, you know, mid-September, and they would have probably carried on growing, but I didn't have the polytunnel set up. I do this year, so that's the plan with that, the shed. Carrots are going to be grown in tubs this year, so I basically have a kind of wooden trough that was actually like a sort of toy box really for keeping toys in. I think that's about 2.5 foot long and about 1.5 foot wide, and it's quite deep. So we're going to do carrots in there. We've got the multicolour variety carrots. I also have another tub where I'm going to do overwintering carrots, which again will probably be on the decking area, but they'll not be going in until later in the year. I'm going to have a large herb tub, and instead of doing what I did last year, I had massive tub of thyme, massive tub of rosemary, massive tub of mint, so on and so forth. We didn't use them all, so look, you know, I'm just going to get a large pot. We're going to 4 or 5 herbs in there, just have a little herb pot. This is where the house is and the kitchen doors is, so literally you walk straight out onto the decking and pick the herbs, which is nice. And then just round the lawn, I showed you the little border that we've got. So I generally don't really bother with flowers and plants. I really am more of a sort of, you know, if I can't eat it, I'm not too interested. But I do kind of want to have a bit of something in here, so I think particularly in this corner, but kind of spread throughout. I really like cordylines. I really want to put a couple of cordylines in there. I'm really into sort of evergreen, you know, leafy stuff. I also really like hebes as well. So you know, a few different varieties of those. And generally, I'm kind of going to grow edible flowers in this border. So we're going to have nasturtiums and things like that. And I'm going to, I believe marigolds are edible, but I'm going to check on that, make sure I get an edible variety. And I might put a few other bits and bobs in there, but you know, I haven't had a nice sort of border with any flowers in the last year, and I think I'm going to kind of do a little bit of that, just because I can. So that's basically an overview of kind of what we're doing with the garden this year. I'm going to just go over in a second to a slightly more detailed video about exactly what's going to be going off in these beds. So here we go, folks, just a little bit more detail about those semi-raised beds. So basically this is to scale pretty much, 8 foot square, these beds. So basically the idea is, you know, if you imagine each of these lines is a foot spacing. So we've got the overwintering garlic, which are in now, in this first row. We've got the sort of spring, I could call it spring garlic, you know, garlic that you're putting in spring, is currently growing in this row. We're going to have 3 rows of red onion and 3 rows of, you know, white onion. Now, I don't mind that one of these rows is in the next bed along. You know, I tend to, you know, onions and salad sort of stuff I tend to grow together because I don't grow potatoes in the ground. So my sort of legumes, others, tends to be a bigger area because we eat more of that stuff, you know. So yeah, 3 rows of red onion, 3 rows of white onion. These are all a foot apart. Leeks, again, 2 rows, foot apart. You know, we love leeks, they're great in the stews around the winter time. And then we've got 2 rows of lettuce. Now in the last video that I posted, I incorrectly called the red lettuce Record. Well, it isn't. That's the green one. Bijou is the red one. So we've basically got 2 rows, foot apart, actually growing them fairly close together, but lettuce grow pretty quickly. So what I'm banking on is that the foliage will sort of help to hopefully create a bit of shade and keep the weeds down. It kind of worked last year. You notice these are broken lines as well. The thing I really want to do this year is successional sowing. I want to get a bit better at that. And I think the sort of key to successional sowing is basically don't sow too much at once. Don't put full rows in. So what I'm going to do here is just put maybe half rows in or third rows in, and give it about 4 weeks, and then put another lot in. I really don't want this sort of situation we had last year where we had gluts and then we had famines of things. So I'm going to be really keen with things like lettuce this year to try and keep that going. Obviously, the early lettuce, we've got some of those in the polytunnel anyway to get us started. Beetroot, so a row of the coloured, a row of the Boltardi. Obviously, these are 8-foot long rows. I'm not successionally sowing beetroot. I don't really think there's any need, to be honest. You can pick them small and you can pick them large, so you just sort of tend to pick them as you need them. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. And we tend to prefer beetroot pickled. We eat fresh beetroot, and I like it on salads and things like that. But as a general rule, we pickle most of our beetroot because we really like pickled beetroot. A lot of gardeners will gasp in horror at saying that, but we do. So it doesn't matter too much, really. We'll grow full rows of those. Moving on to the brassica bed. So basically kale, 2 rows. So you see now these are must, but I mean 1.5 foot apart. I packed my brassicas way too close together last year. Don't underestimate how large these plants actually grow, given plenty of room. And this whole bed actually is going to have a frame over it, a wooden frame that's going to have fine mesh over it, because I'm determined to keep the bloody caterpillars and the butterflies out this year. So red boar kale is going to be one of them. Now I've put green kale. I've not actually got the seeds yet. I need to get this. Is probably the only thing really here where I need to buy the seeds still. I've actually already started the red kale off in the polytunnel. If you watched the last video, you would have seen that. Green kale. I say green. I might choose the Nero, the one with the really dark leaves, possibly. But anyway, 2 rows of kale, cauliflower, which I'm doing for the first time this year, and then cabbage. Sorry, not cabbage. Calabrese. Broccoli, basically, to the layman. Because we love it. We eat a lot of it. We have it with Sunday dinners. And then, right on the end here, only 6 inches from the edge of the bed. But I'm not too worried about that, to be honest, because this area I know I can walk on and I can get to the Swede. So it doesn't matter that it's sort of fairly close to the edge. I'm not too worried about that. But that is the general sort of overview, where everything's going to go. And I tend to find that if I do this, I don't have to, when I'm planting things out in the ground, I don't have to sort of really think and try and work out where everything's going to go, and it's already done and it's already sorted. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I mean, if it bored you, then fair enough. Not everybody finds this kind of stuff interesting, or the planning side of it, but this is what I'm usually busy doing over the winter when I'm sort of really bored and I can't get out into the garden. So there you are. That's the plan for 2016. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Bye for now.